Welcome to the CRAZYDRE Podcast Show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your main man, a.k.a. Crazy Croc, a.k.a. Andre's podcast, brought to you by RSS.com. I'd like to thank Spotify, Apple Podcasts, CastBox, and anyone out there that's listening to my podcast. Thank you so much. I get people from Germany. I don't know what the Germans are like me now, but it's true. Germans do like me. But here we are again. We're going to talk about sports. My buddy Griff is back on the show. This is my newest member of Sports Talk. Sean is someday maybe come back here and there and so forth if he gets his shoes lined up and the White Sox start winning next year. Sorry, Sean, that was a cheap shot. But here we are. Griff, it's nice to have you back on the show. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Crazy Dre. Thanks for having me back on the show.
So, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, Labor Day weekend is over. Hopefully everyone had a good time. But you know what? It's time to talk about football. And we did a little bit last week, the top 20 players. But we're figuring that most of you guys should have your teams all set up. Because if you don't, any of your commissioners waiting for the last minute, he's a jerk. Or he's doing something right to make you guys suffer. I don't know. What do you think?
I've actually still got one more league I'm drafting tomorrow. So yeah, we're right down to the wire.
So is that advantage for you or disadvantage?
Well, it's good and bad. You don't get a lot of time if you draft something wrong. There's not a lot of time to look at the waiver wire to see if there's any changes on there. But otherwise, drafting at the very last moment really gives you the opportunity to see any other injuries or anything that comes in. Everyone that's going to sign their contract, everyone that's healthy, drafting just the day before Thursday Night Football really gives you the opportunity to kind of see absolutely everything before we actually get started.
Well, that makes sense because someone from the Bengals doesn't want to play.
Yeah.
Chase.
Yeah.
He's not. He's waiting for the last second, I guess. And he's not. I would tell people this. I know I just went off wire a little bit, offline a bit. But what I've heard by other networks, other stuff, if you're going to draft him as one of your later rounds, but don't start him at all this week, even if he gets signed within 2 or 3 minutes or 2 or 3 hours or 2 or 3 days, because he's not going to be football ready. Do you agree with that at least? Sit around, maybe, if you're the 9th or 10th pick, and you draft him, he's still sitting around, draft him. But if you're first, second, third, fifth, do you want to waste a pick on a guy that's not going to be ready on the first week and you don't know what his conditioning is? I mean, that to me, sometimes some people think that's a red flag because if he's not going to be ready in the first week and he's waiting and calling out to get a new contract, he may not be ready by the 5th or 6th week of the season. Is that fair?
I think in the particular case of Jamar Chase, I don't think that this is really going to be too much of an issue for him. He's such an incredible talent just on his own. But this week with the matchup that the Bengals have, they're going against the Patriots. Patriots are just garbage. One of the teams really, really working on rebuilding right now. They went out and they got a quarterback, but they still have a very weak offensive line, and then just kind of a mid-level running game. So the defense, I think, is going to be in trouble all game long. And as far as Jamar Chase goes, though, I think that he's going to come in ready and in shape. I think it's probably fair that he drops a little bit in fantasy drafts. I think that he actually has there closer to the end, folks that are still drafting. Towards the end there, he did go down. I just drafted on Saturday this week, and he went 110. So
he went 10th?
Yeah, 10th pick.
Yeah, that makes sense because he's not football ready.
Yeah, well, and you got a couple of really great running backs that you throw in ahead of him. We had a couple of quarterbacks that went. Sometimes quarterback position can be different depending on league settings. So we have one that quarterbacks typically go a little bit earlier. So we had a couple quarterbacks go that might have made a difference. And then running backs, and then the receivers are really starting to get a pretty good sized group for the elite level. So with Lamb and Hill and Justin Jefferson still out there.
I don't know, Jeff. Feel bad for that guy.
Well, and I tell you, I had draft pick number 9, and so I had the choice between Jefferson and Chase.
And who'd you go with?
And I leaned to Jefferson.
Really? Because you think he's only going to be the only guy open for Sam Darnold?
Well,
and he's just the only talent on that team besides Osborne? Because it's Sam Darnold.
Actually, Osborne is not there anymore. Osborne went to the New England Patriots, so he'll be playing in this game here with the Bengals that we were just talking about.
You're right.
But yeah, Osborne's out. But Jordan Addison was a rookie last year. Addison's got a little bit of trouble that he needs to handle. But it looks like at this point anyway, he'll be out there for week 1. I'm not sure if there will be any other repercussions still coming, but at this point, yeah, it looks like Addison's still going to be out there. You're going to have Justin Jefferson. They have a great running game with Aaron Jones out there. The offensive line's already pretty good. And then your defense. Last year they got Brian Flores in as the defensive coordinator, former head coach for the Miami Dolphins, but previously linebackers coach for the New England Patriots. Back when their defense was a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
But regularly produced great things on defense. I saw some good things happen last year on their defense. They really stepped it up. They were really much higher than they were the year before. And then this year they made a huge amount of changes. With the Eric Kendricks leaving last season, but then with Danielle Hunter and all those guys out, they've kind of revamped all their defensive line and linebacker core. And I think that the Minnesota Vikings are going to be pretty stout on defense.
So they're hoping that the score is like 21 to 24 instead of 37 to 26.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Yeah, you want to try and keep it under 21 points for sure. But
because realistically, how many points do you think Sam Darnold's going to be able to produce, or how many touchdowns do you think he'll be able to produce week by week? I mean, he just seems like he's. You made a point last time that he seemed to be pretty good when he was in the right team, right moment, but after playing week after week, teams figure you out in your bad habits. A lot like Cousins, he sometimes will do that, and then he'll put his team in a bad situation with a bad interception. Can't run out of the pocket, get sacked. Do you think that might? I think
Kirk Cousins had some issues in prime time, and I'm not sure that it was necessarily because of prime time. It might have just been it happened to be that game, but he threw some very timely interceptions that really gave him a bad rap. But otherwise, Kirk Cousins was regularly a top 10 quarterback in fantasy.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to the Falcons here in a moment. But
Sam, all right.
Go ahead.
So let's do this. We're just going through the game instead of going back and forth and confusing the shit out of you people. Because then people are like, what are we talking about here? What game are we talking about? What games? And then you're looking through your own sheets. So we're going to start with the first game, Thursday Night Football, 8:30. Probably is it on Amazon? Amazon has those games, right?
It'll be NBC. Peacock.
You do. You're right. Peacock's got that game. So the Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, AFC Championship rematch, correct? Is that from last year?
Yeah. What an insane matchup this is for a week 1.
So
the number 1 seed last year for the AFC and the defending Super Bowl champs, back-to-back Super Bowl champs. This one's going to be a lot of fun. The Chiefs last year seemed like they were slipping a little bit in the regular season. The team was not as good as it had been for several years. But a lot of that was the wide receiver core. And, it wasn't that Mahomes was off target. It was that there were so many drops from the team. So some of those are being corrected with some of the guys no longer on the team. But they did revamp their wide receiver core. Rasheed Rice is back, and he's looking good. And then Xavier Worthy is a rookie coming in. So they have some really nice pieces in there. A few young guys like that. Carson Steele is coming up, and he looks pretty strong. A lot of folks are really excited about him. Isaiah Pacheco, of course, is still number one.
Running back.
And then the new ad with Samad Pirine.
How about Juju? So what do you think about or feel about Juju Smith-Schuster, the guy that used to play with Pittsburgh?
Juju in New England.
No, he's actually.
Oh no! Yeah, you're right. No, he just signed again this week.
So how do you feel about
So
him?
he left, and then he went to New England, and he did the whole offseason with New England, and then he just got brought back with Kansas City here.
Yeah. So what do you feel about that? This guy's kind of like haywire.
Yeah, you know what? It's
Don't draft him.
I mean, I don't think that there's any need for it. You're looking at. Like I said, Rasheed Rice, and then you're looking at Xavier Worthy, and then you're looking at Hollywood Brown.
He's
after
hurt.
that.
Isn't he hurt, or is he?
Yeah, he's currently listed as questionable.
Yeah,
but I think that he's going to be ready for week 1, is my understanding. But yeah, again, that's tomorrow for him, so doesn't have the extra 3 days. But I think Hollywood Brown's going to play, and then Travis Kelce, and then that tight end room is just ridiculous.
And don't forget about his girlfriend.
Yeah. and you have wonderful supporters of the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
All 14 yards.
So they've got a lot of really great things going for them. The Ravens defense is absolutely phenomenal. They're so good. I imagine, usually, and something that we've seen really in the last few years here, where they've done 3 preseason games, the defenses really control the game in the first week and second week. And so I think with that dominating defense that the Ravens have, I think it's going to be enough to slow down the Chiefs' offense in this first game. I like the Chiefs better later into the postseason, but I like the Ravens for the first game.
So let's go to FanDuel. FanDuel's got Baltimore. Actually, they got Baltimore plus 3 points and KC minus 3. So
yeah,
which is crazy.
Arrowhead's a crazy place to play.
Yeah, but it's crazy that you actually think that Baltimore is going to win, and you go plus 3. You're saying good. I would almost go the over under is 46.5. But do you really think they're going to score that many points? Do you have to go over under?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, you got a high powered offense with the Chiefs, but also with the Ravens, they've got an incredible run game now. They added in Derrick Henry this year, so their running backs are just better just with him on his own instead of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and all those guys. But I think they're going to be able to run the ball really well. Mark Andrews looks like he's ready to go. They've added more to their receiver corps. Zay Flowers is back again this year, and he looks great. So all those guys are coming back. I think that this offense for the Ravens is going to be able to do well. I'm curious to see how the Chiefs' defense holds up. I know L'Jarius Sneed was just such a shutdown corner for those Chiefs last year, but with him gone, I think that they lose a little bit as far as their secondary goes.
Yeah.
Losing L'Jarius Sneed, but with that run game and everything, I think that the Ravens look good here.
Well, I like the idea that if Mark Andrews doesn't do well, you can go to Isaiah Likely, and he'll just pick up the slack.
Yeah, Likely really. He's not quite as high statistically as Mark Andrews in the games, but Isaiah Likely is a very, very serviceable TE2.
I'm gonna say this now. I think Likely will be the number 8 tight end further along in the season. 1, because I think Andrews might get hurt again, or 2, he just kind of, you got new blood, you got new youth. Likely is the new youth. He'll just have more oomph, not maybe more power, but he'll just have more energy week in, week out. Where Andrews, every year that I draft Andrews for the last 2-3 years when I pick him up, he gets hurt. If I draft him, he plays well first 3 games of the year, and then he gets kind of bumped up and then bumped down. This is the second year that they've had likely. This will be. So I feel likely, week 10, 13, 14, he'll just get more balls.
You think that's likely?
Likely. I know. I want to go that far.
Been meaning to use that one all day.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to Green Bay Packers, Philadelphia Eagles, plus 2.5 for Green Bay, minus 2.5 for Philadelphia, over under 48.5. Let's talk about the guys here. We got Jordan Love. Is this his second year? Third year?
Second year as a starter.
Yeah, and then we also got Josh Jacobs as a new running back for him.
Yeah, great new addition for the Packers.
Do you think why do you think that his game went down with the Raiders, and then you think that him going to Green Bay will make him youthful again as a new place to play? Is this?
I don't think so. I mean, he was hurt at the end of last year,
Okay.
so he went out, and then Zamir White came in for him. But I think that overall he did well. Obviously, he was the number 1 overall running back in the NFL the year prior, so it doesn't look as good. But
No.
I think he played great. I think he looks good. He's still young enough. He's got time left on the clock. But the big difference I think you're going to see with Josh Jacobs from what you might be used to with Aaron Jones back there in the backfield is that Jones is a lot more. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Jones is a lot more of a pass catcher.
Oh.
And it's not that Josh Jacobs doesn't have the ability to catch the ball. It's just that he's not used that way, and he wasn't used that way in Alabama either. But he is more of a runner. So I'm curious. Some of those Jordan Love stats are padded from dump off passes to Aaron Jones, where he was able to run down the field and get a lot more happening, picking up some first downs.
See, I wouldn't pick that up. So thank you for saying that.
But yeah, so and that doesn't mean that Josh Jacobs won't be able to still run and make that happen.
No.
But yeah, Aaron Jones was more of a emergency blanket there for pass catches.
Christian Watson, he should be. Come on, he's got to be. He's got. If I was Christian Watson, you might have to kick yourself in the ass a little bit. Like, I got to be catching footballs for this guy, the Green Bay Packers, to make it life a lot easier for my team, right? He was kind of a letdown last year, I think, maybe.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, he came in as a rookie, and we thought he was going to be good, but he's had some injuries. Things haven't gone quite right for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he started to fall down the depth chart. I'm not sure that things are going to work out for him. They do have some other really good wide receivers, though. Jaden Reed out of Michigan State. He played phenomenal last year as a rookie. They also have another young guy that maybe a lot of folks don't know about, but Dontavian Wicks really came on hot last year during a few injuries that the other guys had. I would not be surprised if at the end of the year Dontavian Wicks was actually the number 1 wide receiver for that team, statistically.
Okay.
So there's a lot of potential there.
Anything about Luke Musgrave?
Yeah, the tight end, Luke Musgrave.
Do you think he's going to be any good? Because I drafted him. I did. Because I'm like, I need a tight end, and Jordan Love is, he surprised me last year. He beat Detroit in Thanksgiving. Thanks, Todd, for making me watch that game live, by the way. But it seems like sometimes those tight ends in Green Bay just turn it on for 1 year, and then they kind of disappear, and then they get a new tight end, and they do it again for 1 year, and then disappear. Maybe I'm going somewhere with this guy, Luke. You think he'll do something? You think he'll just like, nah?
Yeah, I think Green Bay's tried a few times with that tight end spot over the years, but I don't think it ever really panned out. There was a little bit there with Robert Tonyan when Aaron Rodgers was still there. He looked good. Luke Musgrave, I think, is just a tight end that really just kind of falls short. He's going to have a little bit more opportunity, and I think Jordan Love's going to throw the ball to him, kind of tying into what I was just saying about Josh Jacobs being more of a runner and Aaron Jones being more of a pass catcher. I think here's where you might find some of those. I need a guy to check down to. My receivers aren't open yet. And I think that Musgrave might pick up some of those catches.
I like that.
So I think that there is opportunity there. I think that Dontavian Wicks is really the guy that's going to pick up those short yardage third downs that you gotta get the first down on. But yeah, I think Musgrave could have a shot at that. I still think probably around tight end 10 at the end of the year.
Yeah. Do you think Green Bay will be competing with Detroit for the division? Do you think Detroit will just be better?
Yeah, I don't think Green Bay is the team. I probably see a little regression out of Jordan Love. I think that he overshot last year what his obviously he overshot his expectations, but I think he did a little more than what we really plan on.
Because teams will figure him out.
Yeah, I see a little less with the offense. I'm hoping for a little more out of the defense.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully that goes well for them. This is their second year under the new DC. And then I think that they probably don't finish second and possibly don't make the playoffs this year. But they should still be very close to a 500 record, though.
Okay, I like that. The Philadelphia Eagles, again, we got Mr. Jalen Hurts, new running back, Saquon Barkley. We got kind of an old-timer, A.J. Brown, and we got Devontae Smith, and we got, I can't remember, but we got the tight end. What's my tight end's name? Dallas Goedert. Yeah, he's another tight end that gets hurt. So I don't have a lot of confidence in him. I think he'll be good, but I feel like he sets himself up. Him and Andrews set himself up to get hit hard in real bad situations, or maybe the quarterback sets him hard. Yeah. That's what
I think that's more of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and that's why I don't like drafting anybody from Baltimore's tight end or Philadelphia's tight end, because both those quarterbacks don't seem to understand the defensive call so well, and then they set up their tight ends to get hit blindsided, which now the NFL is trying to protect that, which I think is kind of bullshit. If your tight end doesn't know where he's at and your quarterback doesn't know where the defense is that really the defense fault? I don't think so. I think it's more like the quarterbacks need to better check down than just setting someone up.
Yeah, of course, as a quarterback, you got to try and protect your players.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the size of these linebackers nowadays that are covering. They run as fast as the running backs, and they tackle as hard as the defensive linemen. So
they're basically all
insane hybrid. Oh my goodness, they're so good.
All of them, yes.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
But yeah, I would say if you didn't get a chance at one of the really elite tight ends in fantasy, Dallas Goedert is usually right after that. I probably have him right after Devin Njoku on my list of tight ends, but probably number 7.
Okay.
So pretty serviceable. But yeah, Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown both looked so good last year. A.J. Brown's got a lot more touchdowns. I'm thinking this year that Devonta Smith is going to even that up a little bit. But really, I think the biggest difference that you're going to see is the difference between Saquon and Jalen Hurts as far as their touchdowns, as far as the 1-yard runs. That tush push has been so successful for the Eagles over the last couple of seasons. Is that going to leave Saquon in a spot where every goal line he just doesn't get a touchdown? You pay the guy to come in, and he's, I think, clearly the best running back that they've had in the last few years here. But yeah, is it going to be Saquon losing out on touchdowns, or is Jalen Hurts not going to get those tush push? Is it going to go to Saquon and have him get the opportunity? Try to save your quarterback. Don't let him get hurt down there in the middle of a pile.
I think that's the best call. Why would you want to get your quarterback hurt?
Yeah.
You can go sign Barry Sanders out every time. No, you can't, because he's not coming back to Detroit either.
Well, they've got a little bit of a shifty guy with Kenneth Gainwell too. He's still the number 2 out there. He's like the Barry Sanders type style. He's not quite the same level, but
exactly. But that's kind of why you want to protect your quarterbacks. Eventually, Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts will get hurt because they don't know how to not keep themselves out again.
Yeah, well, Lamar's had a lot of injuries,
Yeah, so. And I swear one of these days, our good Patrick Mahomes is going to get an ass whooping, and he'll see stars and he'll probably start seeing Jesus soon. But that's just my opinion. I just don't understand why you let your number one quarterback of all time. Maybe some people say he's going to be the next greatest over Tom Brady. Who knows? But you're going to get. I feel like he's going to get hurt, and then that's the ship's going to sink for that rest of the year, and maybe he'll not be able to come back the following year as well. Tennessee Titans, Chicago Bears. This is interesting. Plus 4.5 for Tennessee, minus 4.5 for the Bears with a rookie quarterback. People are really on this guy's case. Caleb Williams is, or people say he is the real deal, like Holyfield. 45.5 over under. What do you think about that for the Bears to be the favorite over a bad quarterback core in Tennessee? I guess you got Will. I mean,
yeah. Well, Will Levis. When Will Levis came in last year, his first game he threw 4 touchdowns. So I mean, it's not like he's just some chump out there. He's got DeAndre Hopkins coming back, and then he has Calvin Ridley being added in.
Yeah.
Ridley and Trevor Lawrence seem to not really ever click. Last year with the Jaguars, of course, Calvin Ridley was coming off of a year and a half out of the league. For some trouble, right?
Hey, bet on this team.
Yeah. But it's I think that they have a lot of weapons out there. I like that Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are doing kind of a committee thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Pollard's going to be catching some passes. Spears will be running the ball a little more in the middle.
Yeah.
I think that's really going to help Tony Pollard out. I know he didn't do as well last year in Dallas, or as well as we all thought he was going to do. But I think that's what he needs. I think he needs to be a part of a committee, like what he had with Ezekiel Elliott.
He likes that. I think he likes that because he doesn't, not so much that he's being pressured to be the A guy, but he just doesn't have that body and that muscle strength to play every down.
He's better as that pass catching third down back.
Yeah.
Let someone else do the power running up the middle.
Yep.
And that works out better for him. And I think that's what they've got going on. I think there's some great things going on in Tennessee there. I'm curious to see with the coaching staff and everything how everyone pans out there. And then I think they already have a pretty good defense. So they just got to stick together with that. And then.
Wait a second. Let's remember Tyler Boyd that used to be with Cincinnati's there too.
Yeah.
So almost looked overlap. So that's.
Yep. Tyler Boyd's more of a slot receiver spot. So he's really good at, cutting across the middle, taking some of those shorter passes. So I think there's a lot of really great things there going on in Tennessee. For the Bears, like you said, Caleb Williams is getting all the attention right now. Everyone's saying that he's the once-in-a-generational type talent coming in, and that's, deservedly. You got 6 quarterbacks going in the first round of the draft, and he's number 1 for a reason. For me, I think that some of the things that I saw with him at college, I feel like won't translate all the way in the NFL. I feel he's going to end up a little bit short of expectations as far as his career goes. But as far as this season goes, I think he just has so much talent around him on that offense now.
Exactly.
DJ Moore looked so good last year. But with the additions of Rome Odunze, the rookie coming in, he is an excellent wide receiver. Coming in for his first year. And then Keenan Allen, who has been so consistent, so good for so long. Keenan's probably going to continue to run that same slot kind of position that he ran last year. He was the 3rd overall wide receiver last year. With the Chargers, I expect him to do very well. He is getting older, but I'm not sure that we've really seen any signs of him getting older. So I think that all looks great. And then with the running game, with Swift out there, I think they look really great.
So, here's my thing. With Swift, he was in Detroit. You watched that HBO special, Hard Knocks. Every time I watched it, every time I see him in play or practice and all that, I know he got a bad rep for his kind of like attitude. But when I saw that scrimmages and all that, he didn't want to get hit. He just didn't want to get hit. Even when we had him in Detroit, he didn't want to get hit. You could tell when he was going in. It was a very important down. It didn't seem like he was all in it for it. And when Detroit did him a favor by trading him to his home team, the Philadelphia Eagles. They tried him out. They didn't like him. I think to me, I think he's going to run into the same problem with the Bears. The Bears might want to be looking at this very carefully because if he doesn't want to be in to get hit for the extra 2 yards when it's second down and 4, so it's even third down and 2 to make it more manageable. I don't know if he's going to be that guy. He's just questionable. To me, you can't teach people toughness. He just didn't feel like he didn't have that Dan Campbell toughness. So I don't know how someone in the Bears remember the Bears gave up on Justin Fields. They have a mediocre coach. We all thought he was going to get fired, right? Or something was going to happen.
Yeah, they made some major changes on the team.
But he's still there. And that's what's so crazy about. So I can't see that coach telling Swift, we got to get this first down on this third quarter with 3 minutes to go so we can keep the drive going. I just don't see that in Swift.
Yeah, well, and that team made such a drastic turnaround in the second half of the season last year.
With Fields.
And Fields, sure, but the defense started playing so well in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
And that defense, I think we're going to see again come back this year, and they're going to be very, very strong. They'll be a top 5 defense, I think. So that's going to be a huge part of it as well. And then as far as DeAndre Swift, though, he might be a little bit of a locker room issue, but he produced great results last year with the Eagles when he was running the ball. So he can catch the ball, he can run with the ball. He can do a little bit of all the different things. So he has some great explosive plays as well. I think that he's going to be fine. And I think that when he was with Detroit, I think he put up good numbers.
Well, he did.
But he was a part of a committee.
Yeah.
And so that was always part of it. But
I just have the concern that he just reminds me of an athlete that's relatively was praised in high school and college and coming into pros. But when he come down to nitty gritty, he just didn't really want to play. I think to me, he's the type of athlete that he was good at something, so he kept doing it, but he was trying to make everyone else happy. Almost like if you watch the Amazon documentary on Barry Sanders, Barry really only played football for his dad, and in reality, it was easier for him to walk away from football. And every Detroit Lions fan shit brick about it because what the hell are you doing? But Swift to me is an athlete who's just that he's good, but he's not there to play he's not there to like win the Super Bowl. He's just like, oh, I'm good at this, and what else am I going to do? I'm just keep doing it until I retire. To me, that's kind of I just feel I think it's going to be challenging for Caleb Williams if Swift doesn't play well. If he doesn't run well, and he's not that locker room kind of guy to shoot the shit and talk to the players and all that, I have concern about it because he had Jalen Hurts, he had a great team in Philadelphia. I just wonder why they just gave up on him so easy. And like I would have just like, you're here, you're home, let's play, let's do this, win, let's go.
Well, and I mean, if you have the opportunity to take Saquon Barkley, you drop pretty much any other running back that you have. But yeah, with the Bears, I mean, even if for whatever reason it doesn't work out with DeAndre Swift, God forbid he has any injuries, but Khalil Herbert's still there.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, they have talent at the running back position. So I think that Swift's going to be in there, looking good. I think, like what we were just saying about Saquon Barkley, though, he might lose some touchdowns because of Jalen Hurts running in. Mm-hmm. I think that's what Swift had last year was, he should have had 3 or 4 more touchdowns just because of goal line carries that he didn't get. So
yeah,
I think at Chicago, you're not going to see the same thing with Caleb Williams. You see that spectacular preseason bootleg that Caleb Williams ran around and got the great touchdown running in. But I don't think that you're going to continue to see that. I think he's going to be more of a pocket presence with the ability to be mobile.
Yeah.
But I think that you're going to see more of the goal line touches still go to Swift.
Yeah, okay.
And so I think Swift's going to look a little bit better statistically and for fantasy purposes.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. God's sake, here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers, Atlanta Falcons. We got the old man, Kirk Cousins, and we got one old man and one young guy competing for the same spot. You got just Russell Wilson, who had a horrible year in a life with Denver. He's at Pittsburgh, beat out Justin Fields. I feel like Justin Fields should have just got a job because of his youth and what he did last year with the Bears. I just don't know why you're wasting a year with a guy that's not going to be there in 2 years on your team. He should be the backup. My opinion, I know that I'm not a coach. Mike Tomlin went with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tomlin has such a phenomenal record, right? I mean, in all of his time as a head coach, he's never had a losing season, which is just crazy to think about. It's been almost 20 years now, so
yeah, it's crazy.
That's to not have a single losing season is pretty nuts. But I tend to agree. I don't think Russell Wilson has the same level of play that he used to have when he was with Seattle. Mm-hmm. I think part of his best thing, and it wasn't just his rushing yards that he had. Mm-hmm. One of the great things about Russell Wilson was that he would run for 50 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Oh yeah.
He would go all the way left to right, and he would do it on the same play.
Yeah,
he'd go all the way left and all the way right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those yards don't get counted for anything. But it does add a lot onto you over time, and especially as a quarterback. I think that similar to like the Cam Newtons and those guys that we've seen, where they're more scrambling, active quarterbacks, Russ is he still has the ability to be mobile. He still has the ability to run around. He just doesn't run around quite as quickly. He doesn't turn and cut and miss tackles quite as well as he used to.
Yeah.
And for a lot of those crazy plays, the moon balls that he used to throw to Tyler are just so crazy, all those passes. But I think that he misses out on a lot of those types of plays because he's just not avoiding the defense as well. And the defenders are just so fast now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I think Justin Fields for sure should have been given the job. I think he should have taken over right away. Mm-hmm. But yeah, some of the receiving core out there, Deontay Johnson went off to the Carolina Panthers. So there's their number one weapon already gone. Najee Harris, I think still looks good. Jalen Warren still looks good. So those guys will keep running the ball. But with George Pickens as your number one wide receiver, I think we're going to have to wait and see how the season goes here. Because I think George Pickens is a number 2 wide receiver, and I don't like him lining up against number 1 corners.
Oh.
Okay.
Just because he doesn't have a breakaway speed, first step or something.
No, I mean just a little bit of everything with the route running and everything. I think he's just a number 2. I don't think he's a number 1. I don't think he's a true number 1 wide receiver. Okay. So we'll see a little bit here. Again, Russ was really having trouble with Denver, and I think Denver has some really great wide receivers. So to have trouble there, I think really puts a stamp on Russell Wilson. I think this is pretty much the end for him as a starter in the league.
I just think that
kudos to everything that Russ has done. We watched him cook. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you rather watch? Russell Wilson fall down and can't get up, like Mike Jordan and the Wizards against Kobe? We don't want to see that, right? Yeah. We don't want to see that. So Kirk Cousins, probably his last team, his last hurrah, probably his best team put together for offense. B.J. Robinson, he's got how many reads?
Yeah, Bijan Robinson at running back. You have Drake London coming in as the number 1 wide receiver out there for Atlanta. Kyle Pitts, who every year we keep saying, he's going to be a great elite tight end, and every year he lets us down. This year I think was the year that we were finally ready to say, forget about Kyle Pitts, he's not going to work out. And then Kirk Cousins comes in, and suddenly we say, "Oh no, he's going to be an elite tight end again." So I mean, the talent is there. We know that we saw it in college. I'm curious to see if it really comes out. Some of the other tight ends that he has had in the past, with all those guys, the Kyle Rudolph, the Tyler Conklin, some of those other tight ends. Obviously, T.J. Hawkinson there at the end before he got hurt last year.
Yeah.
But those guys all kind of put up a little bit, so it's not like he's afraid to throw it to his tight ends. He's a smart quarterback. He knows what to do most of the time. Again, he's had some troubles with prime time, but really, if you look at his stats over the years, I mean, he has truly been one of the top quarterbacks over the last decade in the NFL.
Yeah, I kind of, as a Michigan or not a Michigan State fan, but you
kind of familiar with him, yeah.
He's kind of warmed me up a little bit. You kind of pulling for him now because you want at least your little brother to actually succeed in this. Just not Tom Brady to winning all the time. So when you see Kirk Cousins and he's getting cooked or rushed when he's not in the state, uniform, you start feeling bad for him. Like, you're kind of pulling for him to actually succeed now because he's getting older and you're not going to see him much. And it'd be really cool to tell people, yeah, that guy went to Michigan State and we had Tom Brady and they both went to the Super Bowl. One won, one lost, no big deal. But it'd be kind of cool to have some guy from Holland, Michigan, which is my side of the state that I grew up in, to know that we had a guy in the Super Bowl. I don't know that we get there. I just feel like every time Kirk Cousins is on the team gets to a borderline and they just can't get over the hump. And that's just his style. I think it's just not fair for him, but you're right. He suffers big games, big moments, big TV shows, and those are the games that count. So he's going, as a fantasy football league owner, you want Kirk Cousins on that team, or you want some guys on that team that's going to throw to Kirk Cousins. So as a league owner, yeah, his stats are still great. I just wouldn't put my money, $20 down for the Falcons to be in the Super Bowl. If you're doing FanDuel, DraftKings, or anything like that. There is this game that is 3.5+ points for Pittsburgh, which I think that's quite a bit for them. I think they should be like 6 points for Pittsburgh, because I feel like the Falcons, talent-wise, and Russell Wilson's going to struggle. I feel like he's going to struggle, and then they're going to throw Justin Fields in, and Justin Fields will try to make a comeback, but it will come short. But I don't know if that game's going to be that close. I think the Falcons will we just have a better team because we know what the hell we want to do with Kirk Cousins, where Pittsburgh doesn't know what to do between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson.
Well, and I'm kind of curious to see how Kirk Cousins does, not over the course of the season. I think he's going to be fine over the season, but week 1. So he missed all of spring training. He didn't play any preseason games. He's literally just ready to play football today.
So he's basically
he's missed everything. In the NFL, there's so much based on timing routes and all that, and he just doesn't have that chemistry with his guys. I'm sure he spent a lot of time around Drake London. And I'm sure they've built up a friendship of some kind. I'm sure they hang out and do all that. But he just hasn't had the opportunity to throw that ball. And with the Achilles, that's such a killer injury.
You're right.
It's the same thing that Aaron Rodgers had, right? So, it is a really tough one. Not to say that Kirk was super mobile before. Mobile enough he could move around outside the pocket, but he's really a pocket passer, and for him to not really be able to set his feet right or something like that, maybe he has to throw at a slightly different angle because he's planting his foot slightly different. The thing is, that's not anything that we've seen in the preseason or anything. That's just we're about to see whether or not that's what it is.
Oh yeah, okay.
And if you're going against guys like T.J. Watt, on your first game back.
Yeah.
Your time is 2.8 seconds to throw out the football, and I think you have to be 2.6 to get away from TJ Watt.
Cool.
And so for you to throw the ball that quickly and establish, you don't know exactly where your guy's going to be because you haven't had time to actually play with him. I think it's going to be really tough. I think that the Steelers could definitely pull away with this one. I think at the end of the season, the Falcons might have a better record than the Steelers, but yeah, for this game.
So Griff just goose me in a heartbeat. So he made really good points, but now I can't disagree with him at all because he may have totally forgot about his Achilles heel and all that stuff.
Well, we'll see. Right?
Yeah,
we'll see.
You're right. I mean, I think maybe that 3.5 point spread is better than what I thought because I totally forgot about his Achilles heel.
Well, and I mean, he had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and T.J. Hawkinson last year, and prior to that, he had Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs for a few years.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I mean, he always had a lot of talented wide receivers around him. I would say that he actually has the worst wide receivers that he's had maybe in his career. So we'll see how it all goes. But yeah.
Okay. Jacksonville and Jaguars. Miami Dolphins, 3.5 for Jacksonville, -3.5 obviously for Miami, over under for 9.5. Lawrence Taylor, pretty boy, long hair, maybe he looks like Jesus a little bit. I mean, people seem to like him. I kind of like him, but it seemed like last year, did he kind of fall off a little bit? I mean, first year I thought he was this is his third year, right?
Yeah, he said 3, yeah.
So his first year, it looked like everything was like, oh, maybe this is the real deal. And the second year, he kind of fell off. Third year, what do you think he's going to?
Well, and that's the thing, right? We thought that he showed good promise that he could potentially get better, and I think that he just ends up flatlining here. He's just doing the same thing every year. There's not progression.
Okay.
And when you add in a big time receiver like Calvin Ridley, I know we just talked about how some trouble for him and how he spent some time away, but really, I mean, if you add in that kind of talent, along with Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram did so much, I mean, there really should be more showing there.
Yeah.
And with Travis Etienne coming in and playing so well last year, you can't say it's not that there wasn't a running game or anything like that. I mean, with their rookie year, because Lawrence and Etienne both came in out of Clemson, with Etienne being hurt and being out all season their rookie year, maybe you could say something about the running game, but not anymore. And I think what we've seen is that Trevor Lawrence is just kind of Trevor Lawrence.
You don't think he'll be? Do you think he won't? Do you think that he should be able to be almost? I don't want to compare him to like the greatest quarterback that's never won a Super Bowl, but should he be almost as good as Dan Marino? Like he has a good arm, strong arm. Maybe Jim Kelly, not really mobile. He's more mobile than Jim Kelly, obviously, but maybe he is just going to be mediocre. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a little weird to see this guy who looked great in Clemson and came to the NFL, and then second year he's like, oh, maybe Ridley's just not him, not mixing. And if he does have another mediocre year, do you think? Well, I don't think he'll ever lose his starting job. He might turn into Kirk Cousins.
Well, and I think he's safe for now, at least.
Yeah,
I think he's definitely got some time. Doug Peterson has done such a great job with quarterbacks over time. Doug Peterson was a quarterback himself.
Yeah.
And he's been a fantastic head coach, Super Bowl winning head coach. And he did that with a backup quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. So with the Eagles back in 2017, but yeah, with Trevor Lawrence, he's got a couple of new weapons. He got Gabe Davis, who used to be with the Buffalo Bills, and he was a great deep threat weapon for Josh Allen. And then you bring in the new guy from LSU, the rookie Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas looks phenomenal, and he looks like he's going to be a phenom all year. The guy can go out, he can catch deep passes, so Lawrence can throw those bombs. He's got a big, strong arm. That might be a whole new thing that we see in this offense that We weren't seeing as much before. Calvin Ridley had a couple, Christian Kirk had a couple, but that might be a big part of this offense this year. Run the ball, throw a short pass to Evan Ingram, and then drop a bomb for 50.
Well, he has to.
Well,
you have to spread the game out a little bit. You can't keep playing. I mean, one of the things that Trevor Lawrence, I think, had problems with a little bit with really maybe Kurt is that he wasn't able to throw the ball deep as much. Maybe with this guy, you're going to spread the game out better, and then the running game is going to be better, and then the Jaguars will play not from behind, but to actually win games in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
you got to spread the field. Right?
Yeah. Well, they also are working on their defense too. We thought that the defense was going to be really strong a few years ago, and then they kind of broke it apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then since Doug Peterson's been there, they've done a little better job with it. But yeah, I think the defense still needs a little bit more work. I think the defense needs to be really, really strong. I think that's part of the Jaguars' culture since they first joined the league. In the mid-'90s, they've always been kind of a strong defense, run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Taylor, Maurice Jones-Drew, Leonard Fournette for the short time that he was there.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the way the team's always been built. But yeah, to have that security for Trevor Lawrence, I think is going to be really, really important.
Okay. Let's just go to obviously they're playing against Miami, but Miami. Is this their year to actually compete with Kansas City with Tua, and you got Raheem Mostert, and you got Tyreek Hill and Waddle? I actually picked up Waddle on my team because Tyreek was already down, obviously. But is this the year that they're gonna kick the bucket and tell you F you, Casey, will go in the Super Bowl and play against Detroit?
I think unfortunately. This year they get a little more derailed. I don't think it's a matter of Kansas City. I think it's a matter of their own division.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the Bills are still the better overall team. I think that the New York Jets are going to be the better team this year with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. There's a few other changes, and we'll talk about those in a minute as well. But yeah, I think the Dolphins finished third here in the division, ahead of the horrible New England Patriots. So yeah, Tyreek's got great talent. Tyreek did so much last year, and obviously the number one overall player according to the NFL players list.
Yeah.
And he was such a top dog all year last year for anyone for fantasy. I think that's still going to occur, but yeah, I think that Jalen Waddle's probably going to pick up a little bit of what Tyreek was doing last year, as far as fantasy points and yards and all that. So I think we're going to see a little bit more out of Jalen Waddle, which I'm sure a lot of people are glad to hear. I still think that Tyreek is going to be elite, still probably top 5 for sure. As long as Tua stays healthy, we're always concerned about that. 2 years ago he had those 3 concussions in 1 year, and we were all talking about him retiring. Now we're talking about them going to the Super Bowl. So it's...
Well, what's funny is quick story. The old head coach of the Miami, now defense coordinator for the Vikings.
Yeah, Brian Flores.
I guess they just went. I guess that guy wasn't complete a-hole to Tua. Tough love doesn't really work in the NFL anymore. So, you don't take a guy out when he's got his head spinning back and forth. That's kind of stupid in itself. So, thank you for Tua for your health. Hopefully you do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we'll go from there and we'll go to the Patriots, Bengals. This is a 9.5 point spread. And this is probably the largest spread of week 1, and everyone's gonna put their money on Cincinnati Bengals 9.5. I almost feel like this is gonna be either a complete blowout game or the Bengals will accidentally play down to the Patriots level because they're just the Patriots. Sometimes you play the team that's really bad and then you play to their level and the game's not roughly close, but you're not really confident. Like, this isn't supposed to be only a 7.5 point game. This is supposed to be like a 14 point game.
Yeah, well, I don't mean that's not really the way the spreads work, though. I mean, it's yeah, we're all probably thinking that they're going to win by 2 touchdowns, but
Yeah.
the way that those Vegas odds are all put together, people start to see that they are breaking out to a 2 touchdown lead, and then they start putting money on the Patriots,
Yeah.
and then that's what brings the odds back down. So
Yeah.
that's why we're looking at that. I think, and you said a 9.5 point spread. I think what I'm seeing right now is that it's actually at 8.5.
Oh yeah.
So it's actually getting even closer at the moment. But I think that I've actually got more hope for the New England Patriots with Jacoby Brissett in there at quarterback rather than Drake May. So they, we always knew that Drake May was going to be a project quarterback. He got the 3rd pick in the draft, and that means that you're not going to be a project, you're going to be a starter. And then Jacoby Brissett came in, and Jacoby Brissett just played a little better. And you want to go with an experienced veteran and let your young quarterback kind of learn from the bench. You don't want to put your young quarterback into the game and start him week 1, and then halfway through the season take him out and put in Brissett, and then go from there. That's where a lot of these young quarterbacks really struggle, is if you take them out midway. If you let them come in as the bench player starting week 1 of their rookie year, then they can progress to the starting job and they can continue with their confidence that way. So there's a lot there, but Jacoby Brissett, I think, played very, very serviceably in Cleveland. He had some time in Indianapolis where he was a starter. He has done some good things throughout his career. Obviously he's not a great starter for a long period of time, but I think that for week 1, I think he'll end up doing a little bit better job than what Drake May would have done. But I think, that the Cincinnati Bengals team is just too talented. I think there's too much there. And with a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy Jamar Chase, I think that those guys are going to be just fine and taking down the W here.
And I would say they got Zach Moss on that team now. Zach Moss was awesome when Jonathan Taylor was out for Indianapolis Colts. Which, I think the Bengals they moved up with the running back. And I think Mixon was just kind of the guy that was good, but didn't have that extra oomph to...
Yeah, well, and Joe Mixon was always just a very, very steady running back, right? He's kind of a top 10 guy every year. He comes in. Mm-hmm. It's like the old, we were talking about Barry Sanders earlier. You think about Curtis Martin, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer, which I was totally surprised by because Curtis Martin never did anything particularly special.
He was consistent.
He ran for 4.5 to 5 yards every carry, and he just kept doing it over and over. I think Joe Mixon's kind of a similar type of style where he never had anything super, super great, but every year he just keeps on performing. I think Zach Moss is going to be really, really great, but I do think that he's going to be part of a committee with Chase Brown. So we'll see kind of what the two of them combined do. Zach Moss will still be the first and second down. Chase Brown will probably be the third down back, though, taking some more of the pass catches away.
Mm-hmm. All right. This probably be one of the favorite teams. Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts. Both of these teams are kind of fun to watch. They're like Detroit before Detroit was moving up. So Houston Texans got C.J. Stroud, got Anthony Richardson for the Colts. 2 upbringing teams, 2.5 spread. Actually, Houston's got minus 2.5, and over under is for 49.5. So what do you think? So much talent. Stephon Diggs is with them now. Do you think this team is just going to excel to the sky? Do you think there's nothing going to stop them?
Yeah, that team was such a surprise for us last year, a great surprise. But yeah, with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs, what an incredible threat. Dalton Schultz is a great tight end. And then Joe Mixon, like we were just talking about, Mr. Steady, going in there at running back. I think he's going to do great things. Damian Pierce is still there. So they'll have a great running game. The defense, I think, got stronger. So the defense looks really good as well. That could be a really serious Super Bowl contender right there. I'm curious to see, with all the young talent, if everyone puts everything together in the first game. I think the Colts might actually take this one down, but I do think that the Texans will be the better team by the end of the season.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I do like. I don't know about Super Bowl. I think they'll get in the playoffs. I think their inexperience during big games at the end of the year might hurt them. Might just be hurting because they'll just not know what to do, or they CJ Strong will just have that brain fart second, and they'll just throw it in a really bad pass, which is an incomplete or an interception like that. So I think that may happen, but I do think you're right. They will have a better year than the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, what do you think? With the help of Jonathan Taylor being healthy, obviously it's going to help him stay healthy.
Yeah, it's such a huge question mark with Anthony Richardson. We just don't know at this point if what he did in college is going to convert. For an overall athletic ability, Anthony Richardson is the greatest quarterback that we've ever seen. So
exactly.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, with Jonathan Taylor running the ball, I think that he keeps things moving. They control the clock better than the Texans do, and I think that that's what ends up with the victory. But yeah, the Colts offense should run through Jonathan Taylor, and then Anthony Richardson should be there for backup support.
And Pittman Jr. for the wide receiver core.
Yeah. I mean, Pittman's still the number one. He's always just kind of been okay.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're working with quarterbacks like Gardner Minshew, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, you know, and Matt Ryan at the end of his career, not when he was at his peak with the Falcons.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Pittman's just been kind of short-handed with his quarterback room. We'll see how he does. I think he still ends up kind of in the middle, like how he's always kind of done, but maybe slightly better. And I think that with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson both in the backfield, you also pull the defense forward a little more, which should open up more space for Michael Pittman as well.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. So it's 3rd and 4. You think they're gonna run it, and then they throw the little slant or deep to the corner of the touchdown, and there's a touchdown for you. Minnesota Vikings. We're gonna speed up a little bit because we're getting to an hour. An hour. So we'll speed things up a little bit. So this podcast might be a lot longer than usual. We'll try to keep it an hour, but we'll work on the timing situation that we're doing. Minnesota Vikings, New York Giants. Of course, we got Sam Darnold starting because of the J.J. McCarthy's hurt. ACL, MCL, both of them are torn. Crazy how that happened. Sam Darnold, Aaron running back, Aaron Rodgers? No.
Aaron Jones.
I don't know why I put that in there. Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, which he's questionable.
Jalen Naylor.
Yeah, I don't know why Hawkinson's not in there, but is Hawkinson
Hawkins, he's on the pup list, so he's out at least 4 to 6 weeks.
Still. Wow.
Yeah, and kind of depending, he might be out a little bit longer, so we'll see.
Man, Detroit got lucky for that trade. In hindsight.
Oh, yeah.
We think about that. So let's do this. I mean, against New York Giants, you got David Jones, you got, Singletary, you got Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors, we're really going to see a coming out party, I think, with Malik Neighbors. Yeah, he is phenomenal. For anyone who didn't get a chance to see him at LSU, that dude is really, really good.
But let's be real, it's David Jones.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is, I think Daniel Jones has been fairly serviceable, and really with his best wide receiver being Darius Slayton over the last several seasons, I mean, he didn't have any option but to check down to Saquon Barkley. Oh, yeah. But yeah, to throw in a great receiver like Malik Neighbors, and then to be able to have Darius Slayton in there as your number 2. Wayndale Robinson is a young guy they've had for 3 years. Robinson's coming up. They're hoping that he really starts to emerge and breaks out. Mm-hmm. And then Daniel Bellinger, a couple years ago, he came in and he was going to be a big-time tight end. Mm-hmm. And then last year, that eye poke, it took him out for half the year. It was just terrible getting an eye poke like that. But But yeah, he's back. He's healthy, and I think that they're gonna look a little bit better on offense, even without Saquon. Devin Singletary will be able to pick up some of the slack here as far as a pass catcher goes. They're going to struggle a little bit with those short yardage things. Daniel Jones has been a little bit of a runner himself. So I think that when they're doing 1 yard and 2 yard runs for a first down or for the touchdown, I think they're actually going to lean on Daniel Jones to try and make those QB sneaks.
Yeah.
Rather than relying on a running back to take care of that.
I'm just kind of surprised that they didn't try for it. Didn't they draft a quarterback? They didn't, did they?
No, they took Willie Neighbors.
Yeah, I'm questioning about why they didn't draft a quarterback.
Yeah, they decided to drop Saquon, and they said Daniel Jones is going to be our guy.
Yeah, it's
so you pay a quarterback $40 million, or you pay a running back $12 million. You don't pay a $40 million quarterback to hand it off to a $12 million running back.
Yeah,
that was the big line from the Hard Knocks for the Giants.
Oh wow!
This last offseason.
No way! That's awesome. Cardinals, Panthers, New Orleans Saints. You know, this is gonna be a really weird game to watch because I really don't know much about these two teams. Besides Bryce Young had an awful year. I don't know if that's much of his fault. Chubb Hubbard is on the team now. Dante Jordan. Adam Thielen, which is the legendary from the Vikings. You know, that's crazy. He's there. He's trying to help out. He didn't really help out last year because Young didn't, I don't know.
Yeah. Thielen was the number one last year.
Yeah,
and he played well for about the first half of the year, and then he really started to fall off. A little bit of that is going to be just because of the quarterback situation. I don't think Bryce Young is going to translate into a starting quarterback for a long time. I think he'll get another year or two opportunity. But then I think that the Panthers are going to have to look another way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're giving Bryce Young more opportunity though. Adam Thielen's going to drop down. He's going to be the number 2. Deontay Johnson, the number 1 from Pittsburgh Steelers last year, he's coming over, and he'll be the number 1 for the Panthers this year. They have that Jonathan Mingo, who they brought in as a rookie last year. Hopefully he'll add a little bit more to it. Mm-hmm. And then they've got Tommy Tremble and Irv Smith at tight end.
Okay.
So they could potentially do 2 tight end sets. Tommy Tremble, I think, is questionable at this point. I'm not sure if he's going to play or not, but moving forward in the season, he should be out there. Mm-hmm. And then defensively, they've got a decent defense. I think the issue with them last year was that they really had no offense, and with the offense always being bad, the defense was always put in bad situations.
Yeah,
and when your defense starts at the halfway point of the field, you're already asking for trouble. So I think as the offense gets better, the defense will look better. But they also gave up a few pieces like the Brian Burns who went to the Giants and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the Saints though, you're bringing Alvin Kamara back, who just keeps outdoing everything that we think he's going to drop off at some point. He looks good. Jamal Williams is there. Kendrick Miller's going to be on IR for a few weeks. And we'll see. I heard that there might be a trade potentially with the Kansas City Chiefs for a 7th round pick, but we'll see if that one actually comes through. I don't think that anything's official on that one. But yeah, with Williams and Kamara, I think you're looking good. With Chris Olave out there again, Rashid Shaheed came out. He played well last season. Juwan Johnson is technically the starting tight end, but you know they've got all those gadget plays with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's going to do some great things for him too, on just wild things. I think Dennis Allen, the head coach, is really going to be the issue there with the Saints. You know, he's kind of came from that pedigree of Sean Payton, but I don't think that he's going to work out as the head coach for that team long term. So we'll see this season how they do. Derek Carr, I think, still has more left in the tank, but yeah, I think in this one. It could be a close game. I think the Saints probably win it because they're at home, but I think that these two are going to split their division rivalry.
Okay, I get it. Arizona Cardinals, Buffalo Bills, 6.5 points plus for Cardinals. I'm kind of surprised that Buffalo. Let's just go talk about Buffalo Bills. I mean, you got Josh Allen threw a lot more interceptions last year, probably the most of all his own career. Got Cook in the backfield, Kayla Shaker in the back, as a receiver, Kean Coleman, Curtis Samuel, all these new guys. Is this really going to pan out for Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, so Khalil Shakir is the guy who came in last year when Gabe Davis got hurt. And when he came in, he's got some great speed. He's got some great breakaway ability. I think that he's going to kind of maintain that role. I think Keon Coleman is going to take over as more of that Stephon Diggs type. He's got a good-sized body, 6'3", 225. So he's a bigger receiver. He'll be a great red zone threat, I think, for Josh Allen. So he doesn't have to just run the ball in each time. He'll be able to do that. Along with Dalton Kincaid, I know Dawson Knox is still there as well. So the two tight end sets will work there as well. I'm sure that'll be part of their scheming because Dawson Knox is just too good not to have out there, considering your wide receiver room is a little bit weaker this year. Curtis Samuel's been around for a long time, with the Panthers and with Washington team when they had a previous name.
Yeah,
but
Redskins. Yeah, let's just call them that.
But yeah. Anyway, he's great for some of those shorter underneath passes. And then Keon Coleman, I think, is going to be a little bit better of your route runner, and Khalil Shakir is going to help you out spreading the field up deep. James Cook will be there.
Okay, let's talk about quick up. Kyler Murray. People seem to keep giving this guy a chance. I'm not really convinced about him at all anymore. I think he's just going to quit one of these days. Just like be on a football field and quit. No one's going to know that he quit. James Conner from Pittsburgh a couple of years ago. Here's the man of the hour, folks. Marvin Harris Jr. His father, living legend. Well, he's passed away. I think he died.
Yep.
But Marvin Harris Jr. There's so much expectation for this kid. I feel like he could be the next Jefferson and Diggs. I think he might be. I almost feel like he could be Jerry Rice.
Well, and it's fun. You might be able to say that he might be the next Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, I know.
So
his own man. Yeah,
Marvin Harrison Sr. Shout out! What a phenomenal wide receiver he was. And Marvin Jr. Is so fantastic. He's an incredible route runner. I think that everything that we saw from him is going to translate. He came out of Ohio State. Other Ohio State wide receivers that we know, like the Chris Olave, Michael Thomas before his injury issues. All of those guys. Garrett Wilson, who was a 1,000-yard receiver last year with the Jets, working with Mike White and all the backup quarterbacks out there.
There's actually the guy from ESPN's game halftime show. Can't remember his name. He was just back in the 90s. He was at Ohio State. I can see his face.
Kirk Herbstreit?
No. That was a quarterback. There's a wide receiver that's on the halftime shows. I forget his name, but he's always on there. He's always got to get cues about A's and P's and I's about every college football game. But he's another guy from Ohio State that was phenomenal. I mean, Ohio State, as much as I don't like Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, we always compete with players in the NFL. They just don't produce good quarterbacks besides C.J. Strong. C.J. Strong, maybe, again, we talk about Texans, but I kind of branched out.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see how his career goes. But just to my point, though, that Ohio State has produced a lot of NFL wide receivers in the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
And Marvin Harrison is the best out of all of them. So this guy, he's probably a second or third round guy in your fantasy drafts this year. I think you're going to be expected to take him in your first round every year moving forward for the rest of his career.
Okay. Let's Las Vegas Raiders and LA Chargers. Again, they're giving Minshew an opportunity to start with the Raiders with Devontae Adams and who's the running back? Zamara White. I mean, is this his last chance to be a starter of anything? Minshew, because he seems to be really good coming off the bench and being that guy when people get hurt for a couple weeks. But is he that guy that's going to be able to start week after week and not find Devontae Adams? And now Devontae Adams might be in a jam where he's got a huge contract, and he might be on a bad team. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, for a guy that's supposed to be a career backup, he's really had a tremendous amount of opportunity as a starter, and all of his time with the Jaguars. Obviously, last year with the Colts, he was supposed to be the backup to Richardson, but he's played very well. He's done great every season. He's inside the top 20. He's not like just barely carrying the team around. He's actually playing very well for him. So I don't suspect that we'll see horrible things from him. I think that they're lacking a little bit of talent out there on that Raiders team. Zamir White, I think, is going to be a huge breakout. I think we should expect very similar numbers to what we saw with Josh Jacobs when he was healthy there. I don't think that you're going to see any issues with that for the run game. They've got a couple of wide receivers now that I think have potential to do great things. Devontae Adams, I think, should still be at a very high level. 2 years ago, Devontae Adams was top 3, depending on how your league scoring goes. He was a top 3 wide receiver with Derek Carr as the quarterback. Last year, he really struggled with Aiden O'Connell, but having Gardner Minshew in there, I think you're going to see Devontae Adams move back up a little bit with all of his receiving stats.
Yeah, and of course they got Jacoby Myers, which he did pretty good last year and the year before. And you remember this is the reason why this team is being put back together, because of Tony Pierce, because he did such a good job with it, coming in, putting that having this team play real well. If that team fell apart, I think that defensive end guy, forget his name,
Max Crosby,
he would have been in Detroit. But the only reason why he's staying in Raider land because they all love it. Tony Pierce.
That defense is going to be good. Yeah, they're going to be a lot better. I don't think that they're all the way there, but I think they're going to be pretty good this year.
I got a suggestion, Detroit. If the Raiders start to sink, make that trade for Crosby.
We'll see how our guys look, right? I mean, we already have Aiden Hutchinson, but then we brought in Marcus Davenport for our other edge. So,
we'll see. But he wants to come to Detroit. Crosby has said it himself. He wants to come to Detroit. So I want to see that. Please come to Detroit. That's not going to happen. All right, here we go. Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks. Bo Nix, rookie quarterback, looks phenomenal. Looks great. He's going to be Courtney Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mimi Jr., and Javonte Williams, plus 5.5 for Denver against Seattle. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of potential for this team. There's a lot of excitement going on. Bo Nix seems to know what he's doing on the field. Doesn't look like he's panicking. He seems to be really understanding that the game is that faster than it was in college. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, so kind of the issue with the Broncos for the last 15 years here, Tim Tebow kind of had some success, but the whole thing was that the defense was so strong and the rest of the offense seemed good except for the quarterback, and that team really, really struggled. And then when Peyton Manning came in, boom, immediately the best offense that the NFL has ever seen, right? They broke all kinds of statistical records that season. I think he had 4 receivers with 10-plus touchdowns. So that's just phenomenal. But I think what we've seen from the Broncos the last few years, and we thought that Russell Wilson was going to be the answer, but they traded out quarterbacks every year since Peyton Manning left, and nothing ever worked out. But they had a good running room. They had a good receiver core. They have a great defense still. So I think everything else looks like it's lined up. The problem is quarterback. So Bo Nix came in. He looked very strong in the preseason. I don't think that a lot of people are talking about him yet, and I think that they should. Part of the knock on him was that he just played so long in college. We thought that he was just developing slower. But, I mean, his last year at Oregon, he was the number 3 candidate for the Heisman Trophy. and put up over 4,500 yards. He has a phenomenal touchdown interception ratio. Everything else looks good. So for that team, they have a good offensive line. They have receivers. They have a running game. I think that we might see really great things out of the Denver Broncos this season. Seattle, I think we saw a lot of regression with Geno Smith last year. We'll see if that continues this year. I'm expecting it to, just because of every other year of Geno Smith's career. He had that phenomenal season, and I'm so glad that he didn't write himself off. But I think that's probably going to be about it for him. I don't see Tyler Lockett is 32 now. I don't think that he's going to be the same player. DK, of course, is so phenomenal, such a great athlete. I think he's really hurting because of his quarterback play the last few years. And then JSN is such a phenomenal talent. I'm hoping for him to have a breakout. I'm just not sure he's going to be able to break out with Geno Smith still at quarterback.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they're sticking with Geno Smith because, he might be a good inspiration story for mediocre quarterbacks, but you're in a professional league. You don't pan out. They shouldn't keep you there just for whatever sake it is. I feel like the Seahawks will probably bench him sooner or later, and then maybe trade or something's going to happen where they're just going to give up on the team, and then they'll just try to start to trade players for the offseason. I can see.
Yeah, well, they still have a pretty strong defense. Again, I think like we mentioned earlier with other teams, I think part of the issue with those guys in their defense is that the offense struggled, which put the defense in a bad spot. But that's why they are a playoff caliber team, though, is because their defense is so good. They have some really key weapons on offense. Kenneth Walker is such a beast at running back. Zach Charbonnet is phenomenal. I think that looks like a really great combination. But I think that's the issue. And if they make a move and get another quarterback, or they might just have to draft one. But I think that they need to do it in the next couple of years here, because I think that Seattle defense is gonna fall apart after that.
Well, I know one thing. If they don't do something by next year, I know DK Metcalf was going to want to trade. I know there's been word that he's been really frustrated on the sound.
Yeah, it sounds like DK wants out.
Even practice.
Yeah.
And they're just practice. Dallas, Cowboys, Cleveland Browns, 2.5 Dallas. Dak Prescott, probably one of the best fantasy football quarterbacks of all time. Ezekiel Elliott, maybe, you question that reunion again. CeCe Lamb, probably the greatest wide receiver for the Cowboys since Michael Irvin. Brandon Cook trying to make a comeback after 100 years of playing football. Not literally, but it almost feels like it. Dallas Cowboys, Cleveland, you got Deshaun Watson, you got Javonte,
Jerome Ford.
And then you got Deontay Foreman, another running back, Amon Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, which is kind of disappointing in him. I think when he was there last year. Was he last?
No, Denver Broncos.
Was it Denver Broncos? He was a little I don't know what it was. He was a little disappointed with Denver because it was kind of weird that he didn't really pan out there, even though they had Russell Wilson. But Elijah Moore there as well. How do you see, Dallas Cowboys going to be another letdown, make it like 12, 13 games? Do you think they're going to just go poop again on the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this one goes. They did add to their offensive line, so I feel like that's really going to help the running game. But unfortunately, I think the running game is really weak otherwise. I think currently Ezekiel Elliott is listed as the number 1, but I think Rico Dowdle is really going to be the top running back for that team, and then Zeke's going to come in and eat where he can. Dak was the number 2 overall quarterback last year for fantasy quarterbacks. I expect him to put up really big numbers again. I expect CeeDee Lamb to do really, really well again. Brandon Cooks still can cook. So he's got great speed out there. And Jake Ferguson, I expect him to have another big year as well. So some great things there. For the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, we'll see if he can come back and play the same way that he did at Houston. Last year, he did not look like he was quite the same. Of course, he had so much time away, but to be able to have the training camp this year and have the preseason and everything, curious to see how he does. Amari Cooper gets a chance to play against his old team with the Dallas Cowboys, so hopefully things go well there. And should be a good game. We're waiting to see if anything happens with Nick Chubb midway through the year, but I think until then, I think probably the Cowboys take down this game.
Oh, you're right, Nick Chubb. I think I drafted him, but hey, that was kind of dumb, huh? So Washington Commanders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the new quarterback Jalen Daniels. You got the running back Marquez. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's in the backup. The backup.
Oh, Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, which is funny. I wrote that down because I don't know why I did that, but I thought it was kind of interesting. I did that. But Austin Eckler's there. You got Brian Robinson, running back. Both these running backs, which is kind of amazing. Austin, they got 2 running backs there. Terry McLaurin did phenomenal a couple of years ago. Kind of bounced off a little bit last year. Lake McCaffrey and Damian Brown and was it Nash Brown? Noah Brown. I mean,
yeah.
So what do you think about the Washington Redskins? Do you think
the Commanders there, yeah. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to be phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, at LSU, had such a great career following after Joe Burrow. I think that he's going to do well. I wish that they did a little bit more work on their offensive line, but I think they're going to be okay. Scary Terry has been so good for so long. We were just talking about Ohio State wide receivers. There's another one. I think that he's going to be great. Noah Brown was just released from the Houston Texans last week, and then he just got brought into the Commanders this week. I'm not sure that he'll be able to do much for us this first week, but I think that moving forward, I think Noah Brown could be a talent that we should get used to seeing out there in Washington. And then Brian Robinson will be the first and second down back. Austin Eckler, we'll see if he gets some of that third down play. Or if they end up running more Brian Robinson. It looked like Austin Eckler started slowing down a little bit at the end of the last year with the Chargers. Could have been just a total workload, but maybe early in the year he'll do a little bit more. But yeah, he should be coming in as more of the pass catching back with Brian Robinson as the 1 and 2.
That's interesting. He did last year kind of come off, just fall off the planet a little bit. Baker Mayfield again. We got Rashid White. You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, you got Palmer, you got Raheem Jarrett, and Cade Ottoman. I mean, I feel like Tampa is a team that has this premises of old Tom Brady team, and I feel like it's just over. I don't know why they keep this membrane still get together. I feel like Tampa to me should be almost like, okay, Baker Mayfield did really well last year. I think he'll do just as good as this year. But how many years can you have a team that's kind of like just above 500 and you just go, okay, this is good enough? Is that good enough for Tampa Bay? I mean, you won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady a couple years ago. Is it time to break up the band and start over? I mean...
Well, and I don't think it was just Tom Brady either, right? They had more pieces on defense. They also, if you don't include Tom Brady, they had Rob Gronkowski, who was such a phenomenal beast all the way through his career. Yeah. He was so good that first year with Tampa when they won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. All those things go into it. It was also a year that they knew that the Super Bowl was going to be in Tampa, so they were all playing for something a little extra there, just looking for some home field advantage. So some of those things have changed. And I'm not sure, because it sounds like kind of that take that you just had is kind of how the NFL community has a feeling on this.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's not being drafted in fantasy leagues, all that. Baker Mayfield played admirably last year, and in such a way that team still went to the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Like, that is still a playoff team. And you look at the Mike Evans and the Chris Godwin, they still have this, and Rashad White, they still have the same core pieces there. They still have a very good offensive line. The defense, for the most part, is still there. There's a couple of pieces that they're missing, and I think that that's really the difference between the Super Bowl team a few years back and what they have now. But overall, that whole core, they are the same team. I wouldn't expect them to go anywhere. I would expect them to have pretty much the exact same season that they had.
Yeah, and that's crazy because you think Baker was just kind of, I think Baker and Cleveland kind of got screwed. I think people just didn't like his his style, his personality, and I think they just booted him out to Tampa, and Tampa just kind of adopted him, and the team just kind of adopted him because they said, hey, look, man, we don't have Tom Brady anymore, but we got a decent quarterback. He's all right. I mean, he's not.
Yeah, I mean, in the last 25 years for the Cleveland Browns,
Yeah.
I mean, Baker's still the best quarterback that they've had in the last 25
Well,
years.
that's just crazy to me that they just gave up on Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. I mean, I feel like Cleveland is now just Detroit. Plain and simple. It used to be Detroit and Cleveland together in a marriage of stupidity. Now it's just Cleveland by themselves acting stupid.
Both teams are playoff teams.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's keep moving because we got to get this thing done. New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers. Jesus Christ. Can this guy just retire like Elvis Presley's impersonators? Can this guy just go home and just cook some dinner with his new girlfriend or new girlfriends or whatever against San Francisco 49ers? I mean, come on. The young against the old. I mean, when I say the young against the old, I'm talking about Brooke Purdy against the old Aaron Rodgers. Is Aaron Rodgers going to show Brock Purdy that he still got it and it's going to be maybe the upset game of the week, but it's not going to be the upset of the year because obviously, do you think the Jets are going to go anywhere? Could this be the surprise for the Jets? Like, oh, we're going to make the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. Or is this going to be like San Fran's just San Fran? McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo Samuels, just going to run the show.
Yeah, we very well might be looking at the Super Bowl matchup in this game.
Seriously?
Like what we were just saying with Peyton Manning going to the Broncos late in his career when the rest of the team was completely stacked, that's kind of the way that the Jets are. They have a completely elite defense. And the offense, if they can move the ball just a little bit more, I think that they make big changes. And I think we saw the same thing with Tom Brady when he went to the Buccaneers. It was Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski that both went over there at the same time. But I think that what you saw there was, like the year before, Jameis Winston was a 5,000-yard quarterback. He threw for 5,000 yards, but he had 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. I think we all said if he had just 15 interceptions, that team might have still gone to the Super Bowl. They were so good. They just needed a little bit better quarterback play. And with this Jets team, Breece Hall might be the best running back in the league this year. He was absolutely phenomenal. He was top two halfway through half the year to the end of the stretch last season. I expect him to be right back at the top, right there along with Christian McCaffrey on the opposite side. Garrett Wilson was a 1,000-yard receiver last year, another Ohio State guy. But I mean, that guy got 1,000 yards with backup quarterbacks. And not good ones. They did not play well.
Yeah, he knows how to get open.
And if you have Aaron Rodgers out there, he doesn't have to be the same Aaron Rodgers that he was. Before these last 2 years, he was a back-to-back year MVP.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's that he's aged out or anything. I think he's just 40 this year. I know that sounds weird to say that a quarterback's just 40, but we just saw Brady at 44, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that Rodgers, with a year off here, that he might be right back to where he was. Garrett Wilson might be the top wide receiver in the entire league. Breece Hall might be the top running back in the league. And that offense can really get kicking. And I think that they very well could be a true Super Bowl contender.
One thing that you made a good point of is that he's got a year off. As a NFC competitor against Aaron Rodgers, what Aaron Rodgers does real well, he makes time and outside the pocket. He's not going to scramble around like Lawrence or like I'm blanks here, Lawrence or Mahomes. But he makes time to get people open, and he throws the ball when people are open. He's not going to be that fancy guy, but one thing about Aaron Rodgers that he does real well, and he always does it better than Mahomes, he just knows when to run out of the pocket and maybe get 6 yards and run out of bounds. I feel like that's what's going to keep those drives moving with the Jets. And maybe that's going to be almost the missing key for the Jets, just to keep the offense out there and let the defense rest. Just having Aaron Rodgers find ways to get 3-4 yards and make it 2nd down and 7. throw the ball, first down, run the ball, second down, long, third down, and short, and then he'll get those 3-4 yards by running out of bounds. And he did that very, very well against the NFC North, against Detroit, the Bears, and the Vikings. So I can see what you're saying, where he's got a year off. You just refresh away from the game. Doesn't have to do shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean he's working on healing his Achilles tendon. I mean he injured it like the 4th play of the season last year. Everyone talks about, but it's not just that he was letting that heal, but he was letting the rest of his body heal too. Like he wasn't getting hits on his shoulders, his collarbone that he's broken.
Exactly.
Everything about him is healthier now than it was last season. So I think that's something really to watch for.
So that's something that you make a good point, and maybe, just maybe, he'll win the comeback player of the year and the MVP, which is going to be weird. Two belts in 1 year.
Yeah.
So it's just like the WWE.
Well, he's got Alan Lazard, who was his number 1 target in Green Bay for that 1 year without Devontae Adams. Nathaniel Hackett, who was such a huge letdown as head coach for the Denver Broncos, is his former quarterback coach from Green Bay. Now he's there as the quarterback coach again for the New York Jets. So someone that he's comfortable telling him about the plays and everything. This is a really good chemistry for the team. This looks really good on the Jets.
Okay, anything said, done for the San Francisco Giants, they're gonna be the team to be in the North. I mean, in the NFC, obviously. I mean, you got McCaffrey, you got Debo, Samuels, you got Ick, who's signing a huge contract finally. You got what's the tight end's name? Kittle. George Kittle, which I sometimes don't think he catches enough footballs, but maybe that's not what you have him in there for. Maybe he's just better at blocking. But you can.
You got a lot of mouths to feed on that team.
Yeah, but I feel. I mean, should we expect less? We can't expect less from San Fran. This team will probably go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, Brandon Ayuk signed his deal, so I think we should expect the exact same thing from them this year as what we saw last year, and plus or minus the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl. It might be just luck of the draw, whoever wins those games.
Yeah. Okay. One more game. The only game left that's really, really important in Detroit world, in Detroit land, and everything in Los Angeles and Michigan.
Yeah, Sunday Night Football.
Sunday Night Football. I'm taking Monday off so I can watch this whole game. Matthew Stafford makes a homecoming again in Detroit against Detroit. Again, I feel like Los Angeles has got reconnection with Puka, with Cooper Kupp is going to be. I think Cooper Kupp is going to be better this year. I think with their running back, with Carson Wilson. Is that Carson?
Kyron Williams.
Kyron Williams. I feel like this team's almost better than it was last year, and I think that it's going to be kind of like, I feel like Matthew Stafford might have almost maybe an MVP year, because Puka and Cooper Kupp, I feel like he's just going to fit in real well with that again. I don't see them falling off. They got even the backup running back from Michigan, the starter from Michigan, Blake Corum, which I think is kind of weird that they drafted him because he's such a tiny guy. So I mean, that is going to be interesting to watch as a Michigan fan to see what he does. I don't expect him to do much because he's so tiny. He might be another Pollard for Tennessee, that was with the Dallas Cowboys, comes in, does pretty well, maybe a second and third guy off the bench when the first guy gets hurt. But I don't see much out of him either. But overall, I think the Rams are going to be just as good as last year. Maybe their defense is going to suffer a little bit because of the retirement of
Aaron Donald.
But
yeah,
one guy can't just be the rest of the team.
Well, when you get triple teamed on every single play, that's a huge force. So yeah, I think we're going to see a big difference on defense. I think a lot of teams are going to be able to run on them that were not able to run on them before. I think you're going to see more time to pass the ball against them. So I think that other teams are going to score more. I do kind of agree with you, though. I think that the offense might actually be in a better place here Kyron Williams was so phenomenal last year. I expect him to regress a little bit this year. Blake Corum, I think everything that we're hearing out of the Rams camp is that guy really looks good. He is a little bit smaller, but he does have decent size. I think that he can be real durable in the league for a long time. We are looking at more and more of a split on carries and time in the backfield, according to all the reports coming out of there. So I am curious to see how Blake Corum does coming straight out as a rookie. Kyron Williams, we already saw look phenomenal. Kyron Williams, we also heard last week that he is going to be moved to a punt returner for the team as well.
Wow.
So we might be able to see him doing some punt returns. Maybe not touchdowns, but you should see a little bit better as far as return yards for them there. Cooper Kupp, I'm a little bit nervous about. I know last year he was coming back from injury and he just wasn't quite himself. I think that he might just kind of level out. I'm not sure that his ceiling is going to change too much more from what he had last year. Just from the injuries, I think that's kind of where he's going to be stuck at. Kobe Parkinson is in there at tight end now, and then Tyler Higbee backing him up. Those guys can do two tight end sets, which can also help with strengthening and blocking for the running backs. I think we look at some really good things there. I think the team overall ends up about the same. I think that the offense is better, but the defense is worse. I think they still end up about at the same spot, though.
Okay. And, of course, what everyone's been waiting for the last hour and 40 minutes, the Detroit Lions, is this going to be, I feel in some ways, this might be a little letdown year. Not because their team is, I feel like they almost peaked last year, but I feel like their defense will still kind of be their Achilles heel. And when I say that, because they had to draft 2 cornerbacks or 2 D-backs, first and second round, and by any way, shape, and form, if you know anything about football drafting or football, anything else, NFL, those are the guys that you don't want to draft in first and second round. You want to draft your offensive line guys, defensive line guys, or a wide receiver or someone. Detroit's in a different situation to get out amongst St. Brown. And they obviously got their Laporta as a tight end. I do feel like the Detroit has a weaker wide receiver. I mean, Caleb Raymond, that's someone that, you gotta have to keep an eye on, because I'm not sure if he's going to pan out really that great. But, I mean, you got Jamon Gibbs going to give the ball. Who's going to get more touchdowns? Of course, between Montgomery and Gibbs. But, Detroit's defense, and not the front 4 guys, and not the linebackers, but the 2 rookies, one from Tara Arnold from Alabama and one from Missouri, Ennis Rayshard. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Rayshard. I've been saying this in my other podcast, my other episodes. I almost wanted them not to start those guys right away. I want them to be on the bench and coming off the bench during the 3rd or 4th drive, and maybe it's the 2nd drive, just getting to see the game itself. Because I feel like the first 4 games is going to be really crucial for Detroit. Because if they don't get in a fast start and it's 2-2, I'd be happy with 2-2, but if they're 1-3, and I just feel like everyone's going to be coming at Detroit instead of Detroit coming at everyone else. So I don't know. I just don't know if they peaked last year and now they have to kind of regress a little bit and then refocus for the following year.
Yeah. So I won't waste too much time about the offense. I think we're looking at pretty much the same thing as last year. All the same pieces are there. Khalif Raymond, also our return man. He has done a phenomenal job as a return guy. Jameson Williams is the only piece I want to talk about, because that guy really could make the difference. When he was in college, he was absolutely phenomenal. You'll remember Devonta Smith was the guy that won the Heisman Trophy for Alabama their last year there, but Jameson Williams was actually the better wide receiver. He unfortunately tore his ACL in the national championship game that season, and then when he came into Detroit, he was already injured. He wasn't able to do all the training camp and everything. And then the next year, he had some trouble off the field with some issues, and so he missed the first 6 weeks last year. This is the first time that he's had the full camp and everything, the preseason, everything going on for him. Really hope that guy can really come back together and be the first round draft pick that we took. On defense, a lot of the same pieces. I'm hoping that we see a little bit more out of our defensive line this year with some new pieces. I'm hoping that Davenport ends up being a 7 or 8 sack guy. I'm hoping that Aiden Hutchinson actually really breaks out here, and I know that's kind of scary to say since he's already a 10 sack guy, but I hope he really breaks out. So he's like a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt, those kind of guys. So I want him to have 15 sacks this season. I think that would be really great for him. Aleem McNeil in the middle is fantastic, and then they just brought in DJ Reader for the other defensive tackle, who's a phenomenal run stopper, so I think that's going to be really great. Linebackers, I don't have much to say, but then our secondary really is where we kind of fell apart in the playoffs last year, and that's where we obviously needed the most help. I think that kind of the difference a couple of years ago when Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell started doing everything, Cam Sutton was our big guy that we brought in, and everyone said like statistically he was like 5th best cornerback in the NFL based on his rating from the Steelers the year before. But the difference is that he actually defended against slot receivers. So he defended against guys on the inside. He didn't defend against these guys who were the number 1 receivers. So when he came in immediately, I didn't think that was the tremendous move that everyone else thought that was. But Terrion Arnold is a true elite number 1 wide receiver defender. And he did that his entire career at Alabama. You know that Alabama always played against all the best wide receivers every year, and that's what Terrion Arnold did, and he shot down people. So Terrion Arnold, I think, is going to be phenomenal. I'm hoping for that one to really work out for us, and then I'm hoping that Brian Branch also makes another big step forward. He just did so many crazy things for us, just as a great piece in the middle of the field, working between safety and nickelback. But yeah, some great pieces there in Detroit. Those great ads. I'm hoping that Dan Campbell also works just as a better head coach and does some time management things and kicks a field goal when he's supposed to. That's it for me.
I'll say one thing about Dan Campbell, time management. During the regular season, you can go for it, but now you have to be letting the other team know you're going to go for it before you can go and run the guys out there. But there's some rule change in itself. But yeah, Dan Campbell, during the regular season, you can go for it. Hopefully, if they do make the playoffs, you just got to go for the points in the first half and just got to keep the pressure on the defense. And that takes time for new coaches and with the new experience of making the playoffs to figure that out. Yeah, you're right. His time, sometimes his time management was just a little off, even in the regular season. So I basically agree with a lot of what you said. We're going to end this podcast. It's longer than I expected. I think we just got into every little detail of every game in itself. But hopefully in the future we'll break it down so that it's only an hour long or an hour 15 at the most. I like to thank Griff for coming on the show. I keep calling you Griff. But Griff coming on the show.
I'm not the running back for the Lions.
No, you should be. You got good legs. You know? So if you listen to the last podcast, it'll tell you how he broke his legs at a wedding doing the splits or whatever you wanted to call it. But thank you for showing up on the podcast.
Also, just very quickly, I do want to send a big apology. In the last one, I went back and I heard it after we did the show. A big shout out, Kyle Shanahan, the head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. I went back and I listened and I heard that I actually said Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
And I said it, I think, a couple of times. So Marty Schottenheimer, big shout out. Yeah. You're a legendary coach. Kyle Shanahan, obviously, we know that you are the head coach and the man that runs things in San Francisco.
We're not in the 80s right now. It's kind of weird. People are like, hey, listen, they know the future already.
Yeah, silly brain fart.
Yeah. So thank you for everyone listening. Thank you, RSS.com. This is the Crazy Dre Podcast Show. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, RSS.com. I'm going to air this on YouTube, Crazy Dre Podcast Show on YouTube. So hopefully it'll be up there soon. It's gonna take me a while to get a stain on the phone to my computer because it's gonna be long. All right, peace. Wow.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah. So you always gotta turn that off before you unplug it.
Right.
Because else you can blow the microphone up. Dude, that was like a lot longer than I thought.
Sorry.
I'm sorry about
Sorry
that.
for such a long one. Yeah.
No, I was concerned about you because, like, dude, I gotta go work tomorrow. And I got.
Bro, I didn't even get a chance to talk about the 3rd and 4th string guys that I wanted to bring up that said like
Dude,
I
I
could
mean,
do
this
things
is
like
detail. I mean, we could. I mean, I don't know about you, but we could almost make this out like every 3 days instead of once a week because we've got so much information. I mean, like with Sean, it was more like joke, bullshit.
Yeah.
Fun to have me, make fun of me.
Yeah.
We go through games and he'll go ape shit. Because, oh, they fucking suck because they're from Michigan. And I was doing the same thing with him about Michigan State. But, I mean, I was thinking, man, I got worried at 20 minutes. Like, we're only on a second and a half game.
we gotta turn this off.
Oh, you're right.
Is that